But you may not know this about me, but I'm so old that I actually studied with Dr. Suzuki. I was one of his American students.
That's fantastic.
I'm a cellist. And when I went to undergraduate school, I went to Stevens Point, University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. And there was this woman by the name of Marjorie Aber who had taught strings in Detroit. And with a group of string teachers, they went to Japan and discovered Suzuki method and brought it back. And then when I was an undergraduate, I was in music ed, so I would teach alongside of her in the campus school. And that all we had at that time were the green books that were violin books. There was no Suzuki cello, no Suzuki harp, piano, flute, none of that. And I was a cellist, so I wrote out Lightly Row, Go Talent Rodi, Minuet, all of those songs for cello. And I think I probably am the first Suzuki cello teacher in the United States, because it was after that John Kendall came out with the books, the various books at the different level.
Yeah.
But when I taught, it was these green books, and they were all in Japanese. And then at that very same time, which was in the late 60s, we started the American Suzuki Institute in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. And Marge was my teacher. We used to go canoeing together. I one time dumped her in the water. So yeah, I have a strong Suzuki background.
Well, that's fascinating. And now he's 11 today. One of my sons is his birthday today. He's 11, but he's just graduating book 2.
Yeah.
And of course, we're already listening to book 3. And of course, Hilary Hahn just recorded all the Suzuki violin material. And of course, it's spectacular.
Yeah.
But I've been taking Jack to his lessons and group lessons for the last couple of years. And I've become so enamored with Suzuki that I was going to get back in June, get my certification. They now have Suzuki trumpet certification.
Oh, interesting.
So hopefully it's going to happen again this coming June, and fingers crossed that we'll be able to do that. But I think Suzuki is brilliant. The whole sound before sight concept is.
But the problem is that, and Suzuki method has great criticism because of this.
Oh yeah.
And what he understood and Marge understood so well is that we always learn at 2 different levels. We have oral learning and we have written or visual learning, and they both have to be taught from the beginning on. And that's why Eleanor and April were so good, because what happens is if kids progress quickly and they're playing by ear, they don't learn to sight read. And so sometimes you have players that could sit first chair in an orchestra, but they can't read anything because they can learn so fast in a microsecond. When they've heard it once, they can play it. So reading has to be taught very, very early on, but at a completely different level than what they're doing orally. And so it's a really interesting thing. So therefore, Suzuki method has gotten a bad rap. Do you remember when Suzuki was the concert master at ISO?
Hidetaro, yes.
Hidetaro. Well, I talked to him several times about it. He hated Suzuki method, and he actually studied with Suzuki, but he felt like there were so many students who just had such poor reading capability because of the way teachers were teaching it. But before we get to this other interview, I think sometimes I've been a great teacher, sometimes I've been a mediocre teacher, sometimes I've been a terrible teacher, but on occasion I've been a great teacher. And I attribute that to Suzuki. He taught in such a remarkable way. When I knew him, he was about 80 years old, smoked like a chimney. His wife was German, but he, as old as he was, he'd have these little kids and he'd be marching around the room and be up on a chair and down off the chair, and kids would be following him. He'd be laying on his back and playing. He made the holding and the playing of the instrument a natural extension of his body, but he always did it with enormous positivity and fun and curiosity. And I, when I'm really a good teacher, I know that I attribute a lot of that to him.
So we're gonna get to this, but I want to see how this is gonna relate to or transfer into the children's choir.
Yeah.
Because I have to imagine that there are parallels. There's transference there.
Yeah, enormous parallels. And I have a bridge between Suzuki and children's choir, and that's the Kodai method. And that helped me a great deal.